individually in the paddock. We'll start with horse number 1, Guanaco, who finished second in the Festival Plate this time last year. This is a step up in grade.
And he went on to win the Topham, a long way behind Foy Pour Estedes at Ascot last time, but at least they're having another go.
Number 2 is Imperial Commander, who won the Paddy Power Gold Cup in such impressive fashion, but then didn't stay in the King George, and that was when Nigel Twiston-Davies' horses started to take a turn for the worse.
Yeah, he's shown with that win that he acts on the track, 2, he goes well fresh, and I don't think he's quite good enough to win on his best form, but he could have a little bit of improvement left.
Jessica Harrican trains Night Legend, and this horse finished 4th in this race last year behind Arvik.
Yeah, nothing he's done subsequently suggests he's going to be able to get closer than that, and I suspect he's up against it.
Lantartique won the Jewson Handicap Chase 2 seasons ago, but last time he was well beaten in the Ryanair Chase. He finished 7th.
Yes, he's only had 1 run this season. That was in the Tingle Creek at Sandown. He was well beaten there, finished a long way behind Tidal Bay, and he's another one who looks up against it.
The festival wouldn't be the festival without Mr McGoldrick, and he claimed the winner's enclosure last year with a victory in the Festival Plate.
Yeah, grand old horse. The ground came right for him there. It was much softer than it has been this year. He's been running well. He ran really well in the Peterborough Chase. That was his best run of the season when he was 3rd behind Monet's Garden.
Monet's Garden, the 11-year-old, 2nd in the Arkle to Foy Pour Estedes in 2006 and 4th in this race 2 years ago.
Yeah, that's one of his better runs at Cheltenham, because he hasn't always shone when he's come down here to Cheltenham. But he looks in good condition again, and he'll be having a crack at Foy Pour Estedes before going on to Aintree, I should imagine.
There is Arvik throwing his head around. He was 2nd in this race 2 years ago, and he won it last year.
Very much keyed up, this horse. He has had problems in the past with his jumping, and did show very, very little first time out in the King George. Another one where the stable was out of form.
Schindler's Hunt has got muscles on his muscles when I saw him, and he finished 4th in the Champion Chase last year. Yeah, magnificent looking horse. He won a handicap with top weight, or with a big weight, at Leopardstown 2 outings ago, and was then 2nd after making a lot of the running, which probably didn't suit him ideally last time at Naas. Tidal Bay is another horse with an excellent festival record, 2nd in the Ballymore Hurdle 2 years ago, winner of the Arkle last year. And
he's had a few problems in his build-up to this race, as you heard from Howard earlier, but he thinks he was tempted to have a go at Masterminded, but decided to go for this instead.
And finally the favourite, the winner of the Arkle 3 years ago, the winner of the Champion Chase 2 years ago, and 2nd to the mighty Masterminded last year. Now he tries to win the Ryanair.
Yeah, the one thing that stands out with this horse is his absolute consistency. The only time he's been out of the first 3 when completing was first time out at Aintree, when he was carrying a huge weight in a handicap, and he ran very well to be a close 4th.
Right, these are live shots now, and that is Imperial Commander and Paddy Brennan. They'll be feeling a lot better, or at least the Nigel Twiston-Davies yard will be, after the victory of Tricky Trickster yesterday, but unfortunately for Paddy, he wasn't on it because it was an amateur's race.
Yeah, Tricky Trickster kept finding extra, and he looked magnificent, really well. Imperial Commander's Paddy Power form has been upheld partly by some of the also-rans, but he was produced spot on the day. The stable were absolutely flying. Now they're showing signs they're on the way back, but they're not in that same rich vein of form they were in the autumn.
How do you anticipate this race developing? Who's going to go to the front and force it?
The one thing about this for Robert Thornton is he won't really be worried about the pace, because his horse acts under any circumstances, and if necessary he can go on a long way out. But it's got the look of a race that's going to be slightly tactical, or more tactical than the Queen Mother, certainly.
I tend to agree with that. Arvik, I thought, looked magnificent. He needed those 2 handlers. He was looking quite skittish, wasn't he? Ready to go.
Of course, they changed the tactics in this race last year and took him to the front, so he may again be taken to the front.
Lots of festival and course specialists here, all lined up in the same race for the Grade 1. Foy Pour Estedes trying to make his mark over slightly further. He came the notable scalp of Masterminded at Aintree over 2.5 miles at the end of last season, after being beaten by him, thumped by him in the Queen Mother Champion Chase. He gained his revenge. That horse probably not at the top of his game on that day at 2 miles or anywhere beyond. And Foy Pour Estedes has run twice well this season. First time out in a handicap where he made a critical mistake. He might have won. against all the odds, but he was third and not staying in the King George in his second start. It was a bit lacklustre, even so. It wasn't just the distance, was it?
Yeah, and there was a school of thought that thought it was better going this way round. The King George going right-handed didn't suit him, but he then came out and produced that magnificent performance at Ascot with a time that said it wasn't, backed it up and beat Guanaco.
He might have pushed Masterminded if he was at the top of his game and he ran in the Champion Chase yesterday, and Masterminded wasn't quite so imperious yesterday. He might have given him a real race. Yeah,
you'd have thought he'd be capable of beating those others by 7 lengths, certainly. That would have been great. But he's got the Ryanair, he's still got a task on his hands, and clearly not quite as strongly favoured as Masterminded was yesterday. He does look extraordinarily well. He holds his form so well. That's what's great about this horse.
The addition of this race has provided many a good spectacle, but it also provides more options, and it means that horses that might otherwise have clashed with other horses in, say, the Champion Chase or the Gold Cup run here instead.
Yeah, I think there was an element of a pattern before that used to mean that the races that were missing here were there at Aintree, and now they've put the new races in here as well.
They have. This is going to be a good one. That's John Richard.
So they're being asked to come and form a line. Mr. McGoldrick, as always, close to the fore, and they're often racing for the Ryanair Chase. And early on, Our Vic, Mr. McGoldrick and also Imperial Commander lead them on the run towards the first, with Guanaco just behind the leaders, Schindler's Hunt and Boy Perustedes as they leave the ground for the first time. There was a good leap by Night Legend, who carries him up alongside Tidal Bay. Monet's Garden is just a couple of lengths off that little group, and Lantartique is held up at the rear of the field as Our Vic leads them over fence number 2, at which Schindler's Hunt just made a slight mistake, and Lantartique was just niggled briefly and continues to be so, just at the back of the field by Graham Lee, as if he's not necessarily that far back completely by design as they reach fence number 3, at which Mr. McGoldrick made a mistake, and again Lantartique jumped out to the left and brushed his way through the wings and is off the back end by a good 6 to 8 lengths at the moment, as out in front Our Vic, last year's winner, leads by about 3 to 4 lengths from in second Imperial Commander. Guanaco racing on the inside of Mr. McGoldrick, 3rd and 4th. Tidal Bay is 5th, with Boy Perustedes racing in 6th. Schindler's Hunt on the outside of Monet's Garden and Night Legend, and Lantartique is the back marker as they race towards the first of the 4 fences they'll encounter in the home straight. Out in front, Our Vic leads by only a couple of lengths. He rather got into the bottom of that as they're all over safely. Imperial Commander in second. Guanaco on the inside races third. Mr. McGoldrick shows in 4th place. Boy Perustedes alongside Tidal Bay as they rise at the next. From on the inside, Night Legend, Schindler's Hunt towards the outer in company with Monet's Garden, and Lantartique is still the back marker as up the home straight, Our Vic trying to re-establish that advantage that was slightly whittled away by that slow jump earlier on at the home straight. Our Vic leading by about 2 lengths again from Imperial Commander, who again attacked the fence with a little bit more relish. And the field are all tightly grouped, but Graham Lee's getting increasingly anxious on Lantartique, just chasing the horse along, trying to keep him interested and in touch as Our Vic leads Imperial Commander over that fence. So turning away from us, Our Vic leads by half a length. Imperial Commander in black and white, then a chasing line of 3 made up of Guanaco on the inside of Boy Perustedes, checks with the white sleeves, and Mr. McGoldrick 3 wide. Tidal Bay towards the inner comes next in the noseband, the black and beige from the grey Monet's Garden, then Schindler's Hunt in red and white on the outside of Night Legend, and the back marker remains Lantartique, still niggled along but not losing any more ground at the moment on the main body of the field, who are towards the first plain fence down the side of the course, and Our Vic leads them over it. Again, Lantartique is slow at the back of the field, and it's really been an uphill battle for him from the word go as they race towards the water. Our Vic with Imperial Commander and Mr. McGoldrick getting closer. Boy Perustedes in 4th place. Guanaco, Monet's Garden is improving, now into 6th place past Night Legend and Tidal Bay, then Schindler's Hunt, and the gap continues to grow to Lantartique. So making their journey towards the next and open ditch, and again the field are all over safely. Lantartique getting increasingly remote. Our Vic with Imperial Commander and Mr. McGoldrick out wide. Boy Perustedes content to track the pace in 4th from Guanaco and Monet's Garden. Dennis O'Regan getting lower in the saddle on Tidal Bay, about 8th or 9th place, shortly to drop to the tail of the leading group. The only one that's off the back end is Lantartique. Imperial Commander took over from Mr. McGoldrick. Boy Perustedes also moves past Our Vic, who's given way pretty tamely from having made the running and now receives reminders. Monet's Garden, the latest one to go past him with Schindler's Hunt, a Night Legend. Guanaco's drifted back slightly, and then Tidal Bay as they rise at the next. Imperial Commander is over with Mr. McGoldrick once again running a mighty race. Boy Purustedes in third place. Schindler's Hunt has made good ground. Guanaco is fifth, then Monet's Garden, Night Legend behind these, and a gap growing to the others as they now make their journey towards the next fence. And out in front, Imperial Boy Purustedes right at the buckle end. Robert Thornton right at the buckle end of his reins there, regathering them. A moment of alarm for one of the bankers of the meeting, just chased along to hold his spot. Imperial Commander, Boy Purustedes back on an even keel on the run down towards the third last. Schindler's Hunt, then towards the inside, Guanaco. Boy Purustedes alongside Imperial Commander. Schindler's Hunt travels well in third for Ireland. Then comes Guanaco, whips drawn on Mr. McGoldrick as they turn for home. Imperial Commander, Boy Purustedes just being chased along. Then in Schindler's Hunt in third, and Imperial Commander turns towards the second last with a length lead. Robert Thornton has to reach for the whip on Boy Purustedes. Schindler's Hunt means it's no two-horse race. Imperial Commander, Schindler's Hunt, Boy Purustedes back in third as they take two from home, and over it Imperial Commander from in second. Schindler's Hunt, Boy Purustedes could only find the one pace, and down towards the last Imperial Commander pressed by Schindler's Hunt. Boy Purustedes back in third. Imperial Commander over the last from Schindler's Hunt. Boy Purustedes still with 3 lengths to find. Imperial Commander driven up the hill, leads by a length from Schindler's Hunt. Boy Purustedes is running on, but Imperial Commander for Paddy Brennan and Nigel Twiston-Davies from Schindler's Hunt. Boy Purustedes, and the Ryanair goes to Imperial Commander. Boy Purustedes in second, Schindler's Hunt third. Tidal Bay flew up the running when it was all over for fourth. Guanaco, Monet's Garden, Mr. McGoldrick and Night Legend.
And that's a good horse. We thought he was a good horse when he won the Paddy Power Gold Cup for Paddy Brennan and Nigel Twiston-Davies back here in November. He didn't get a chance to prove it over further at Kempton, and when the Yard's form took a bit of a dip mid-season, we didn't see him again afterwards, but he's come back here to the festival and won the Ryanair Chase 2009. He's jumped better than Boy Purustedes, who's probably thrown away the race with untypical poor jumping. Robert Thornton right to the buckle end, 4 out, not fluent earlier than that also, and Boy Purustedes, who's usually so sure-footed around Cheltenham, I'm afraid took a few false steps here and lost the Ryanair Chase to Imperial Commander. Alan King had to settle for second, and in third it was Schindler's Hunt, who's bettered his fourth in the Champion Chase last year and run well for a long way for Paddy Flood and Desi Hughes, and the three of them had it between them from a long way out. That was a critical error for Boy Purustedes. It really knocked him back, but he was horse enough to come back and rally for Robert Thornton and hold his position, but those errors must have taken their toll in the end.
Yeah, it wasn't only the mistake, was it, because he got caught back between horses, and Robert really had to drive him back up to get back into contention, and again he gets squeezed later on, but there wouldn't, apart from that mistake, there are no real excuses. He's beaten Guanaco not quite as far as he had at Ascot, but that's the form you gauge him by. That's why he was a short price for this race, because he'd beaten Guanaco easily at Ascot. He's beaten him easily again, but he came up against two really tough rivals who just wouldn't go away. Imperial Commander on the inside kept finding more, and on his outside Schindler's Hunt, who just responded so well to Paddy Flood's urgings that he got in front of Boy Purustedes, and Thornton had to come around the outside approaching the final fence.
Heading to the last, I was thinking Boy Purustedes going to hold on for third, but then he stages some kind of rally up the hill that accounts for Schindler's Hunt, but doesn't quite mean that he can get to Imperial Commander. Yeah,
very brave performance by Boy Purustedes considering that mistake, but just as brave the first and third, and Imperial Commander sticking on really gamely up the hill. It doesn't look like he stays any further than this 2.5, does it? And when you see Tidal Bay, who got a long way behind, flying at the finish into fourth place, another couple of 100 yards he would have won, and that's that awful mistake you see there from the favourite.
Yeah, that was the end really of Boy Purustedes' smooth travelling. He rallied, he ran bravely, but he didn't jump as well as the winner. But the head-on will show you how the horses make ground up the run-in, and how Imperial Commander probably finds 2 mile 5 absolutely ideal. So that means that Ryanair quotes from William Hill for 2010 of 6 to 1 are understandable, but 16 to 1 for the Gold Cup, and from Boylesport's 14 to 1 for the Gold Cup. I think on this evidence I'd be looking elsewhere. I'm not sure that he'd quite he'd quite see it out at this stage anyway in his career. Maybe be stronger in a year's time. The one that is running on from the back and maybe might in the future be a Gold Cup contender, I suppose, is Tidal Bay. He makes a lot of ground. You've already mentioned this, Eddie, from the rear. Yeah,
his jumping is still a little bit hit and miss. He made a few minor blips in his jumping, and he's jumped the second last in 8th, run on so strongly that he's on the heels of the leaders at the line. This, of course, this win for Imperial Commander, or the courage Nicky Henderson, who Barber's Shop chased him home in the Paddy Power, and Barber's Shop has a go in the Gold Cup. But Nigel Twiston-Davies probably thought Imperial Commander wasn't ready for the Gold Cup, and he's been rewarded with a Grade 1 prize of his own.
It's a great victory for the yard, and it means that they're entering the season with some success that they started with. They couldn't stop producing winners in the early part of the season, but they did trail away. I know Nigel has said that it's just that his horses become poorly handicapped. I can't really see that. The results do not reflect that. They definitely hit a poor spot, but they're back here. The tricky trickster who kept his form all year for the yard, and now Imperial Commander, who did suffer a reverse in the King George, has come back after a break and won this.
I think that's the key, but this horse has come back after a break. He hasn't been running while the stable's been out of form.
Unlike Ballyfitz, for example, and other horses that have been continued to have been run through the stable's poor form, and perhaps have suffered for it.
Yeah, most of them a lot of them had stiffer tasks, as Nigel pointed out. They were up in the handicap or carrying penalties in novice races. So the ones that haven't run, like Imperial Commander, have probably benefited more, because if you don't run when you're not in form, if you run when you're not in form, it's bound to affect you later on, I think. And this horse has been produced fresh and well for the second time this season, comes back from a break to win. Really good bit of training. And Voipur Estedes, he didn't get the breaks today, but he's still done Alan King and Sir Robert Ogden and Robert Thornton proud.
I think they won't help but be disappointed, and they'll be somewhat baffled as well, what with the horse is usually so perfect round here.
Yeah, he is, but he's made the odd mistake in the past. He hasn't always got round. It was at Newbury, I think, in the Game Spirit that he unseated once, and he was just crowded by other horses, and it was rather unlike him.
Here, it was unlike him, certainly, but here is Paddy Brennan heading towards the winner's enclosure. This will mean a lot to him. He's had to suffer the poor form of the yard all season, and he'll have seen Sam Whaley-Cohen get to the winner's enclosure on one of the horses he has been riding, Tricky Trickster, and he really would have wanted to get there himself, and so he has, with a very, very good horse. A horse that's got an impeccable record virtually around Cheltenham, and has made the 2 mile 5 distance his own, and he's now won a Grade 1. It's Imperial Commander is the winner of the 2009 Ryanair.
Paddy Brennan absolutely delighted with that success. And this horse is rapidly becoming a Cheltenham specialist, isn't he? A well-earned drink for him there. And he's battled on tenaciously up the hill. And it's very much arguable that he is improving rapidly. And he's won this Grade 1 Ryanair Chase, just getting washed down. And it's the second winner at the meeting for Nigel Twiston-Davies. Let's get the SPs. 6-1 the winner. Voipur Estedes 4-5 favourite. Schindler's Hunt ran really well, 22-1. Didn't quite see out the trip. All 10 ran.
Everyone's got an opinion. What's yours worth?
Coming up next, the Ladbrokes World Hurdle, and Casbar Bliss, favourite for this. He has been for a while, and he strengthened the market after his demolition of a good field at Haydock last time up. He is next.
Paddy Brennan on his way back in. Let's go over and grab a word with him. Paddy, congratulations, that was something special.